is not that I think there would be a substantial difference had we went through the process differently, but having everyone else included and having these focus groups, when you saw the divisiveness early on and could have changed course and said, okay, maybe I'm doing this wrong, maybe we need to go back to the drawing table and have everybody offer their input from all sides and educate all sides and have all members of this community understand A, why certain members need certain things, B, why other members feel that might be somewhat imposing to them, and C, what's that middle ground that could work for all sides. But instead you drafted a law and you left it to the residents of this village to interpret a legal document and draw their own conclusions to it, and come here and offer input to you that most of which did not get feedback until a new draft of the law was issued. And then those same residents had to read that same legal document and interpret for themselves what changes were made. That's not the way this should have been done. And if that process would have been went about differently, I think we would be in a completely different position tonight amongst all members of this community. And just one last point, and you can address what you choose to. Assuming this law is passed tonight in a vote, I'm just curious to know what procedures are in place to thoroughly educate our building department on the enforcement of the new law.
Well, that once we have a law passed, we'll sit down with building department, code enforcement. We're also probably going to sit down with probably with the planning board and the zoning board to make sure that they're aware of what's going on. We'll do something else.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will address. Yeah, you can see. Again, going back to the topic of a focus group, we've been going on for a year. We've got exhibits, we've got transcripts of 4 meetings, we've got written exhibits from professionals on both sides of the issue. We've got letters, 867 letters from one side, 643 from the other, I'm estimating, basically telling us your opinion on what should be done, on what should not be done. You want to talk about a focus group. We've been carrying on a focus group for 1 year.
No.
We've got...
Definition.
Excuse me, Mr. Levinson. Whether you consider that or not to be a focus group, that's your prerogative. But as far as we see it, we have been carrying forward with this matter for 1 year. There hasn't been one person who has not been allowed to speak. There has been not one person who has been stifled. Not one person has not... Thank you, sir, for your courtesy. There has not been one person that has been denied the opportunity to speak. All right? And I know this has been a very passionate issue. I understand a lot of emotions have been going all over the place. But the last thing I believe this board can be accused of is just ramming through something. We had a year. Excuse me, this is not the schoolyard. This is one person speaking at a time. Please.
Stop the condescending.
Please stop shouting from the audience. It's not condescending. I am requesting the same decorum and the same respect that you ask of us. When you speak, we let you speak. Thank you.
Arrogant, bigoted people, which you wrote in the Journal News.
Thank you. Yes. Ms. Falcone? Ms. Falcone? No? All right. Mr. Grayson, I believe you signed up for Mr. Grayson?
Here.
Good. Name and address for the record.
Oh, well, I already know. I'm in a water workers class with Subush. I'm like, it's what it considers a new instructor. And it reminds me, we practically text him out. I've never seen a phone name.
Lee March Grayson, 52 Wilshire Drive.
I guess I want to begin simply imploring the board not to pass this house of worship law. When my wife and I moved here to Chestnut Ridge, we moved here because it's diverse, lots of different groups, and we never would have thought of imposing our way of life on our neighbors or telling our neighbors how to live. It seems to us, it seems to me, that the proper course of action would have been to develop a comprehensive plan first. It's been about 2 years now during this process. And then work on whatever proposals that the board wanted to do. There's a certain reality is that the current law is not enforceable. And I have no idea how you're going to enforce the new law. I think it's a safe bet that no one's going to be raiding the houses of worship, especially when the schools and whatever else is going on is taking place. There's a certain reality on the ground that I don't think the board gets. At least in my part of Chestnut Ridge, what we see, and nearby at 3 Spring Hill Terrace, parking on the streets and lawns, overcrowding, on Wilshire, wholesale destruction of trees. I literally have a neighbor that took out every single tree. And in the past, I have asked the board to consider an ordinance for trees just as Clarkstown. And I have no idea, if we're all talking about preserving the character of Chestnut Ridge, why you would not want to have a tree ordinance. Okay? This is what daycare centers, or at least alleged daycare centers going on. Certainly on weekends, I see all sorts of construction vehicles at nights and on Sundays. And where's the enforcement? And of course, the bright lights at night. I mean, this has changed in the 9, 8, 10 years that we've been here. This is the reality on the ground. And frankly, I make my remarks as a concerned citizen. Someone who pays a lot of money in property taxes. And these are not remarks from someone who is ignorant, arrogant, or a bigot, which I think is very offensive to come from our mayor or our board. So I'm urging the board to think about what it is that you would do. Because what you do will erode the tax base. It's going to really adversely affect property values, and they're going to go down, and people are going to move out. And that's the reality of what you're doing. You're changing this village, and in essence, you're destroying it. It's one thing to want to have an ordinance that's going to reflect different religious beliefs and values. It's another thing to be influenced by one small group and change the way of life of everyone in this village. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Martin, would you still like to speak on the agenda? Again, Ms. Martin, just name and address for the record, please.
Sabrina Martin, 2 on the road. The minutes for the village board meeting that occurred on November 29th, 2018. A member of the community asked if we had recommendations from the planning board regarding this law. Mayor Presky responded and said, the planning board said they approved the law. They had no recommendations in regard to any modifications or revisions in regard to the proposed law. I don't believe that's a true statement. Please help me understand why we have a legal document, which I believe is the minutes for the village board, that has a statement in it that's not true.
I'm sorry, Ms. Martin. You're going to have to say that to me one more time.
I'm reading the minutes dated November 29th, 2018,
right.
of the Chestnut Ridge Village Board meeting.
Okay.
I need to tell you what's in the minutes?
No, I want, and
I'm
you
just
say,
saying, you can go to the minutes of that meeting. It's page 4, I believe.
okay,
And you were asked, the Board of Trustees were asked by a community member if we had recommendations from the planning board.
the county planning board,
It just says from the planning board.
county planning board. The
It says
planning
the
board,
planning
our
board.
planning board didn't get the mail yet. That's from the.
No, this is
Oh,
dated
November.
November.
Yeah, that's
Excuse me, sir. This is dated November 29, 2018.
sorry.
Our planning board wrote a recommendation
Different
in
planning
May.
board. It's a different planning board, Ms.
Sir, it says the planning board. And this was not from the county. This was someone who actually sat on the planning board. This is dated November 29, 2018.
Okay.
Our planning board made recommendations in May of 2018.
Okay. I don't know the context. I don't have the meeting minutes in front of me. There are 2 planning boards that we could be speaking of. We have the
Well, then even the county planning board didn't approve the law. Your statement, your response is the county board, the planning board approved the law. We don't have any statement from the planning board, from the county, or from the village that states the law was approved. And I think for the sake of integrity, authenticity, and transparency, we should have a village record that reflects appropriately what was stated from our planning boards. Because moving forward, we have a vote that's on the table, and what we as the community members do not want to have happen is have minutes that is not truly representing what was stated.
We don't carry the minutes from past board meetings here, but the Clarkstown Planning Board sent in comments on or about that time on this law. Our planning board, when I say our, I'm referring to the Village of Chestnut Ridge Planning Board, had commented on other potential local laws dealing with entity disclosure and rental registry. I'm not sure if it referred to that. I'm just in the back.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but it's very clear what the question was referring to. It was referring to the zoning law,
All right.
and if the question was with regard to the planning board. We don't have any comments from any planning board that approved the zoning law.
Mr. Sebastian.
So, you know what, I think that this exchange of information is consistently reflective of when a question is being posed, and the expectation is that we have a board of trustees that responds with integrity and with a level of validation and authenticity that allows for us to feel that regardless of differences of opinion, we're going to have a truthful exchange of information. Now, I have a document here that's stating something that's not true. And I think that we should, for the record, have it clearly reflect. The question was clear. And the question was specific to our planning board. What were the recommendations from our planning board? And the response says the planning board approved the law. So whether it's Clarkstown, county, or ours, we don't have any comments from any planning board that specifically approved this law.
Gotcha.
Are you finished with your 5 minutes? I'll respond.
Well, I don't know if I had 5 minutes tonight.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes.
Well, I have other questions, but I just
Well,
have a
I'll
concern.
respond at the end.
I have a concern about that, and I think that I deserve a response to that.
I'll give it to you.
And I think that I don't want to continue to be in a position where after I've asked a question and then I sit down, then I get a response that spins and twists
You can
and
stay there when I respond.
changes and deflects what I'm bringing to the table.
Okay.
The other concern that I have is last month and I don't know verbatim, I'm not going to repeat verbatim, but last month at the village board meeting, it was stated that there was consideration now for a comprehensive plan. And when asked why you were considering a comprehensive plan, the response was, this is what the community wants. And the community said that they wanted this. I don't know why, and I'm not quoting you exactly, but the community said that they wanted this, and they just came up with this idea, after we proposed this house of worship law. So now, since it's something that the community wants, we're going to go ahead and do it. Well, sir, if you're doing it because the community wanted it, so that we can take into consideration as a whole the entire village. And once the comprehensive plan was developed, we then put into place amendments to that comprehensive plan that would consider houses of worship. So it's not let's have a comprehensive plan just for the sake of having a comprehensive plan. The recommendation, which came from your Chestnut Ridge Planning Board, which most of the village concurred, is that come up with a comprehensive plan first, and then make amendments to the law with regards to taking into consideration the character of the village, the environmental concerns, health and well-being, quality of life, etc. And what you're doing right now is you're going ahead and voting on an amendment without having a comprehensive plan. So why make a statement last month as if you were truly taking into consideration what the village recommended, and you actually aren't?
All right, Ms. Warren, I'll address that comment first, and then I'll go back to the other.
So in closing, okay, this behavior, is, kind of going back to, what I'm sure our grandmother said and great-grandmother said, to put a plan, a comprehensive plan in place, to vote on this law, and if it's approved, to approve this law without putting a plan in place is putting what we would say the cart before the horse, okay? And to move forward with this law without having a plan in place is what my grandmother would say is doing things ass backwards.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. In addressing your comprehensive plan comment, I have said this in the past, and I'll say it again. This village was established in 1986, did not have a comprehensive plan. I was on the planning board for 9 years, did not have a comprehensive plan. Other than once or twice, the planning board saying, you know what, we should have a comprehensive plan. That was the last time any of the boards basically addressed it. Not one village resident, to my recollection, since I've been a planning board member, right up until I've been mayor, other than as a result of this House of Worship law, has anyone ever brought up the fact that we need to have a comprehensive plan?
We asked 3 years ago.
Right, before.
3 years.
Okay. So, the comprehensive plan, then, what happened was, we said, you know what? Instead of doing the whole village at once, which at the time I thought would have been a little bit too much considering the village talked about doing a comprehensive plan for about 15 years and never did it, I figured let's do a phase at a time. So we came up with the Red Schoolhouse Road corridor study. We got about 3/4 through that, half to 3/4, and then we have our House of Worship law. And folks started saying, you know what, we need a comprehensive plan, we need a comprehensive plan. And I said, well, it's not like we said we weren't going to do it. We were doing it in phases. So if the tide is that strong that you want to see a comprehensive plan all at once, that's fine. So what we decided to do was, we'll do the entire village at once. Now, we already have a portion done because we started with the Red Schoolhouse Road corridor study. So we will move forward with that. House of Worship and comprehensive plan do not go together as everyone seems to think. The House of Worship law, the rights to House of Worship are separate and apart from any comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is basically your zoning laws. There is never ever going to be a zoning law that says you cannot worship here, ever. And a comprehensive plan is not going to say that. It will never do that. A comprehensive plan will address all of the village codes. The comprehensive plan will try to update. The comprehensive plan will try to address vacant pieces of property that may still exist, or large parcels that could be cobbled together so that we can plan accordingly. Because when the village was established in 1986, the dynamics back then were a little bit different than when you fast forward to 2019. So that's why you do a comprehensive plan. So a comprehensive plan was not going to prohibit a house of worship. Nobody says you can't do both simultaneously. Nobody says you can't do one before the other. It's a matter of administration within the village, and we're going to do it. We're going to do a comprehensive plan. The house of worship law would not be negatively affected, just as the comprehensive plan would not be negatively affected. Now, you may not agree with my explanation, and you're entitled not to agree with me, but that is the law, that is the process. Now, is there anyone else that wishes to speak on the agenda items only? Yes, sir, name and address for the record, please. Oh, I'm sorry. And with regard to your first question, again, without having the meeting minutes in front of me, I still say that within the context of that question being asked, it is undisputed that our village planning board did not send us a memo stating we support the house of worship law. There's no question. That's a memo going back to May, that we understand that they had certain suggestions and certain reservations and revisions that they wanted us to do. There are other planning board agencies, whether they be county, whether it be neighboring Clarkstown, whether it be Orangetown, that also submitted comments. My recollection is that the county planning board had no issue with the law other than accounting for sidewalks if necessary. Other than the county planning board saying that they were supportive of the law. There is no question, and if somehow I did not articulate it clearly, I did not say, and I don't believe I would ever say, that the planning board of the village of Chestnut Ridge welcomed the house of worship law the way it was being drafted. So I apologize if the context in which the meeting minutes were written, we'll have to go look at that. But my recollection is, in that context, there was a planning board, i.e. the county, that had no issue with our house of worship law. And I presume that was the answer was to that. Because it's without a doubt, and nobody here would have any question that I would never say that our planning board supports the law. So, but I apologize if there's been some type of misunderstanding. Yes, sir, name and address for the record.
Ben McCullum, 726 South Pascack Road. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I heard a few things said that I thought were raised questions. First off, I've been here for about 20 years now. I've always enjoyed living in Chestnut Ridge. Looking out the window for the first time in many years, I see a lot of kids playing outside. It's kind of enjoyable to look at and listen to them bicycling and stuff in the streets. So from that standpoint, it sounds like we're improving. So, that being said, the mayor alluded to on the house of worship stuff where they're having yard sales for religious items. I think you were talking and comparing them to the 5-acre churches, were you not?
All are allowed to do that.
Right, you use the 5-acre churches.
Well, that's
as a
because that's what we
comparison,
have right now, and that's a request.
So that's yes, right?
Yes.
Okay. When I first started this process, our esteemed town attorney said to me, us, in that meeting, and I recollect that the demographic size of the family in the United States was growing from 6 to 8 children per household. I asked him where, in fact, he got that number from, and he didn't have a good answer for me at the time. I've never heard back, but I went to Pew Research, and you couldn't have been more wrong about that. If you look at it, Pew Research is quite good. Just a note. Plan. I was curious. We're talking about money now, aren't we?
Yep.
I heard you say that we're going to have to hire 4 or 5 more enforcement people in order to kind of make this all work.
It's a total. It's a total.
Total. Okay. So, from a money standpoint, what's the 5-year budget for something like that?
Well, we don't do 5-year budget. Right now, we're in the midst of planning our budget for next year, and part of that budget is to increase a full-time deputy building inspector, to increase a full-time code enforcement official.
I heard those numbers.
All right.
But I was wondering in this decision, what monies you've projected this is going to cost the village of Chestnut Ridge.
We pay the building inspector $35 an hour, code enforcement is $25 an hour.
So these positions are going to cost us, with benefits loaded, how much per year?
120,000, I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Okay, and that's so we can do house of worship laws, right?
No, that's for building department and code enforcement.
So
Has nothing to do with house of worship.
So it doesn't make any difference whether we do house of worship. This is going to happen anyway. Is that
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to be incurring that money as part of our budget every year after that.
That's the proposal, yes, and I've had folks ask to do that, so.
Thank you. We already are, I think, the third highest taxes in the country. And I'm just curious about one other thing about the planner and the proposal, or the projections that they have. If we incorporate the house of worship law, how many can we expect over the next, we don't do 5 years, let's just do 2 years, okay? How many houses of worship can we expect will be in place at that time, based on the planner's numbers?
I believe it's between 16 and 18.
And what?
I believe between 16 and 18.
Okay. If they apply for exemptions, no matter what religious group they are, and those houses come off the tax rolls, what's the impact?
Well, average village tax, let's say 700 a parcel.
I'm sorry?
Average village tax, say it's 700 a parcel.
But so added to the town and the taxes we're already paying.
Well, the town and the school.
We can keep them separate. But the fact of the matter is we are going to incur a significant increase. At least in the inception of this, and as things get rolling, it's possible it'll get much bigger. So
But
I was
they're
just
entitled
curious.
by law.
Yeah. By what?
They're entitled by law to do that. Tax exempt.
I didn't ask that question, but thank you.
Well, it's part of the question, Mr. McCollum.
So anyway, you also talked in terms that the tie goes to the runner. You heard letters from one side and letters from the other side. They were about equal, right?
I didn't say tie goes to the runner, I just gave you the numbers.
Was that right? Were the letters equal on both sides?
No, there were 1,400 letters filed in opposition.
Mr. Leibelson, thank you.
I want to correct you.
I appreciate you yelling from the audience, but I believe the question is to me. Mr. McCollum, you want to speak with Mr. Leibelson, or would you like to speak with me?
Will you answer the question?
I'm going to try. I'm going to try. The total letters are what they are.
What are they?
Yeah, what is?
I want to make a point on this.
All right, then make your point.
How many letters were there? Are they equal, or was there a balance one way or another?
I am going to venture a guess that there was probably more letters against than for.
Okay, so
More than twice. More than twice.
Yelling from the audience really isn't the best decorum. Thank you.
So that being said, not understanding the financials entirely at this point, the way I hear it, we have a very blended community, which I enjoy, by the way. As I mentioned at the inception, I don't think anybody here wants to pay an enormous increase in taxes, which it sounds like it's possible we will be. I heard you say you're proud of the fact that there was no comprehensive plan ever. I don't understand that. In my opinion, based on everything I've heard, if you consider the financial implications, if you consider the fact that there's no